What's up, YouTube? And welcome to Back in Bama with Corey, all about Bama football news, updates, and more. Guys, I happen to be just sitting and thinking, and the question came in my mind, is it more equitable for Kalen Deboer to recruit strictly out of high schools or strictly high school players over veterans in the portal? Now, I had the support of AI on this one, but that just had me thinking, in this day and age, which is better? What did Curt Cinetti do? Curt Cinetti brought players with him from James Madison to Indiana, and he also recruited heavily out of the transfer portal and got veteran players, but we heard very little about any players that was coming in via high school that Curt Cinetti was recruiting, okay? Off the Curt Cinetti bandwagon, and I'm going to step the soapbox, and I'm going to simply just focus on, is it better for Kalen Deboer, and how is it working out? And Kalen Deboer happened to pay a visit to, I want to say, Indiana to see Marshawn Sales, the number one wide receiver in the 2027 class. Alabama wants this guy. He's in high school now. But again, let's focus just on the questions. Guys, I'm not going to take up much of your time as usual. But remember the question. Is it more equitable for Kalen Deboer to recruit high school players over veterans in the portal? And then I'm going to get into the Marshawn Sales thing in another video. Now, this is the short answer. Recruiting high school players is generally more equitable than relying heavily on veteran transfer portal players, especially in Kalen Deboer's position at Alabama. Now, here's why. Okay, framed specifically around the equity rather than competitive advantage. AI, guys. Why high school recruiting is more equitable. Now, let's first start with equal starting line. High school recruiting gives prospects the same entry point into college football. Comparative scholarship structures, time to develop without being displaced by older players. Portal-heavy approaches often favor players who already benefited from a Power 5 resources. Push out younger players before they've had a fair development window. In other words, younger players may need a little bit more time where someone's coming in via the portal. These guys has already got game time experience. Even if it's a few games, half a season, they still got more time behind the whistles and in front and in back of the chains. Now, here's the equity takeaway. High school recruiting distributes opportunity more evenly, okay? Now, let's talk about reduced roster churn harm. When programs prioritize transfers, high school signees lose reps, roles, and sometimes scholarships. Players can be forced back into the portal themselves. Now, you guys heard the horror stories about coaches are literally telling kids that's there, hey, you're going to have to get in the portal, man, because we're bringing in this guy, we're bringing this guy from here, and these guys are ready to go. That's sad. Like, that is crazy. I remember when Coach Prime, when he went to Colorado, and his first meeting with the players, he simply said, hey, look, some of y'all are going to have to get in. Some of you guys are not going to be here. And what he basically saying, you want to go, you go ahead and get in that portal, but go ahead and get in that portal. So, I mean, that type of stuff happens whether we want to hear about it or not. Now, access to under-recruited talent. High school recruiting allows late bloomers, players from smaller programs, athletes without elite camps or NIL exposure. Transfer recruiting often favors players already visible, those with production and brand value. And with that brand value comes a big dollar sign. And that's where it kind of gets kind of sticky because players are looking for the program that's going to give them the bigger bag. Now, here is the equity takeaway in that case. High school recruiting widens access beyond the already advantage. Hit that subscribe button and give me a roll tide. Where the transfer portal still is equitable. Now, let's focus on that. To be fair, the portal has equity benefits too. It gives players an escape from bad fits or broken promises, empowers athletes previously stuck behind entrenched starters, corrects recruiting and coaching mistakes. So equity does not mean eliminating the portal. It just simply means using it responsibly. Now, what an equity balance looks like for Coach Kalen Deboer. Now, high school players are the backbone. Clear development timelines. Yeah, that's if you got the right coaches to do it. Transparent competition, multi-year opportunity. Yes, if a young player is developed and really has a liking to the program, kind of reminds you of Ryan Williams, right? The kid comes into Alabama right out of the bat, 17 or 18 years old, and basically just balls out his freshman year. Then falls off, but he's still dedicated to the program 2 years later. That's an example that I like to give. Now, it also says that transfer portal as a supplement, fill genuine roster gaps, avoid blocking young players unfairly, prioritize leadership and need, not convenience. And just let's look at the big picture. Now, the high school recruiting equals equitable opportunity creation, whereas the transfer portal equals equitable opportunity correction. If the board leans too far into veteran transfers, opportunity concentrates amongst the already proven. Younger and less visible players lose access. If he centers high school recruiting and uses the portal selectively, Alabama stays competitive and fair. The system aligns better with long-term player development and opportunity. So, guys, what's your thoughts? As I said before, I happened to just be sitting and I was thinking, is it more equitable for Coach Kalen Deboer to recruit high school players over veterans in the transfer portal? I think this was a great breakdown for us. The opportunities exist for both sides. You got the long-term development opportunities, and then you got the guys that's ready to play straight out of the box, straight out of the portal, ready to play. You just don't have those guys for longer periods of time, and depending on brand and value, you can end up spending a lot more money on a player coming out of the portal that has experience. But you also can get players coming out of the portal like Alabama has in the 17 players, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 17 transfer portals that came in, players that came in via the transfer portal. There are some young players that has limited experience that potentially can bring value to Alabama without having to spend a lot of money. But guys, what's your thoughts? You leave a comment. And as always, remember, back in Bama with Corey, all about Bama football. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Back in Bama with Corey, all about Bama football. Turn on all notifications and hit that like button.